Okay, so this is my version of doing the modification on a SymaX5C-1 transmitter. I'm sure you've seen them before. If I didn't see them online, I would have not known how to do this myself. And I thank those other people for showing me how to do it, but I want to do mine slightly differently because I just do it just a couple different ways. There are 8 screws on the back. Remove all the batteries first so there's no power to the unit. So I've taken those screws off. You all know how to do that. And what I did when I did my modification, I just unsoldered these 2 wires down here from the power area. And then it was easy to work with. You just got to solder them up again. It's not a problem. And got all these screws off, the 8 screws that hold this board in place, except for one left here. Take that one off. And off comes the board. And you know the cat has to come and start meowing right about now. What just fell down there was the switch, on-off switch from the other side, and that always something I would forget. And then there's these 2 pieces up here in each corner, and you don't want to get them out of place when you put them back on again. Oh, here's my lovely assistant here now. So what I ended up doing is taking the antenna from an old router, and this router was from TELUS. It's called a D-Link, and it's the AirPlus Extreme G. And I'm saying that because I see that some of the routers don't come with the bolts this one has. It has 2 bolts, top and lower, that will bolt to the router case and hold it in place. And what I ended up doing, instead of gluing or taping it in with double-sided tape as some people have done, what the original plug has is it's got this square fitting that fits into the case and it holds itself in place. So all I did is I took part of the router case, this is where it was bolted onto the router, right here, and I cut off a piece on the other side, made it into a square, drilled about, I think it was a 1/4 inch hole in it, and then I could tighten these bolts down onto that piece, and it's held in place by the case going together. There's no glue, no taping, all that sort of stuff. And I left everything else the same length as it came out of the router. There was a fair bit of a long piece going to, I forget what this is called. It's the junction where it's soldered into the board, and then it goes to a junction, then it goes up to the antenna itself. And so that is the one main difference between what I've done over what some other people have. And another thing which I'm interested in seeing how it will work. I'm sure it will work fine. So here's the stock antenna, and the stock antenna is very short. It's only this long, and this is where it was on the board. It was right down here, and what you do is you unsolder that, you put on the new antenna, solder it in place, and I've seen people saying, well, you've got to take the coaxial wire and take it off the side and ground it. I don't think so. I mean, this piece of wire here is soldered on by one little point, and I believe this other piece is pretty much the same. That's the way it came off the router. The router only had one point of contact where that antenna went on, and so that's what I've done when I put this back together. So I just put it inside there, and it's sort of out of the way. And another little thing I did, which I don't know, many people won't care about, but the piezo alarm on here, when you turn it on, is just a real high-pitched, tingy sort of sound. And that alarm is right down here. Oops, I got my hands in the way here. The alarm is right there. And what I did is I put some glue on it, and I'm going to put some more on. Melt the glue on place. I'm just going to tone that thing down a bit because I just can't stand the sound it makes. But that's basically it. Once you put the bolts in place on your little square piece that you're going to have the case holding together, you tighten them down good and tight, screw on the antenna, And like I say, some don't have those bolts, and it's just a piece of plastic that will flip-flop around a little bit, and then maybe you do have to glue it in place or use whatever. But I really like that this router had the bolts that will hold it in place, and I can make from the router case itself the piece that the case will hold together, no gluing. And I did use a bit of hot glue to just hold the wire off to the side here, and this junction piece. I'm not electronically proficient in my wording or whatever, but this piece here, hold that in place, and then the cable just falls into place nicely. It just tucks in there when you put everything back together again. And so you do put it all back together, and I've tried it and it works. I cannot do a real long test because one of my motors is dead on my machine right now, but it does work fine on the bench, and I will do a longer test soon, and I'm quite certain it's going to work just fine, just the way it is. So that's it. Get one of these old routers. The fellow who got me this router was into computers, and he said these things are useless to most people now. And so you can pick them up real cheap. I just gave him $5 for this, and got my antenna, and I really like the way it went into my transmitter here, and that's about it. So, no seasickness, the camera's on a tripod, and maybe a couple points are simpler than other builds, and I'm not putting down these other guys at all. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't even know how to do this, but I just figure that if you can get away with not gluing it in place and just solder the antenna to there instead of worrying about pulling out the shielding, I think it's a much easier install, and just not as difficult to do. And it just like it's built for it. I really like that too. That's all.